All right, guys, welcome back to episode 11 of Voice of the Broken. We did it. We beat 10. This is me trying to figure out where I want to go from here. I know that I want to continue posting these videos on YouTube. I just don't know if I want to post them to the Voice of the Broken or the To Be Better podcast account. I definitely don't want to maintain the TikTok and all of that stuff. However, I think I might be having somebody take over those accounts so that I don't have to deal with it and then go from there. With that being said, I have a good one today. This one is from a Patreon supporter, and it says, my story up until today. And the reason that I say it's a good one is because the first paragraph says, thank you for helping me in ways I did not know I needed help. I am new to listening. Thank you to you and Peach for helping me so much. I'm going to cry and go through emotions as I write this email, as I have never unpacked my childhood and everything else up until this day. This, I'm hoping, is a good one. This is 10 pages. There might be a whole lot of good information here. There may not be. We'll find out, but let's get into it. As I write you, my life story of 32 years so far on June 30th, 2024, so you just had a birthday, I am going to preface this with I just got over the thought of ending it all. As I was on my way to treat myself to my favorite Tex-Mex food place and listening to episode 9 of Voice of the Broken. After dropping my daughter off at her mom's, I am writing this email to you instead now. Also, I apologize if it's kind of back and forth and my punctuation is not the best. That's okay. My grammar's trash, dude. Which is why the screeners do their thing. Man, you already hit me in the feels. I'm glad that you decided to listen to episode 9 and then send an email instead of eliminating yourself. And I hope that you're getting help in the Patreon and Discord community that we have. That's why we have it. There's a lot of growth to be had. All right. So also real quick, I was going to sit here and read from a piece of paper like I did with the conversation with 18-year-old me, but I put I have a giant 55-inch TV right there, and I just put the document up on the TV. So if I'm not looking directly at the camera and I'm looking over, if it's weird, just let me know in the comments. Also, for those of you who are listening to these episodes, if you're into this, please like, subscribe, and share the content. I would like to continue doing Voice of the Broken. It gives me something to do when Peaches is not able to record with me and I'm caught up on my work. It gives other people a job because I'm actually paying somebody to do the editing for this now. So you're actually doing a lot by sticking around. All right, so moving on. I will also preface this with I have been clinically diagnosed with MDD, major depressive disorder, and anxiety. My dad is bipolar depression, anxiety, and major bipolar disorder, I believe, as they can be categorized and separated. My daughter has ADHD, generalized anxiety, and ODD. My mom has depression and anxiety. Everybody's got a label, man. It doesn't define you. Your labels are just something that gives you a diagnosis so that you can try to mask and like deal with your life. When I read things like this, all I can think about is how fucked up we are as a species and how 100 years ago this wasn't the case. We didn't have all of these. And it's not because we didn't know about it. It's because the way that we lived our lives was very different and we had real food and not poison. And it was just a very different scenario. Okay, so moving on. My childhood was not the best, even though I thought it was. As a young boy, all I remember is my dad sleeping through his alarms and almost being late for work. My mom, sister, and myself waking him up before we left the house every morning. I also remember him locking himself in the den all the time and not really spending a lot of time with him in my very young adolescent years of development. But he slept by my crib every night because he was afraid that I would stop breathing as I was a colic baby. I also remember a lot of fighting between my parents. All of this was prevalent until the summer of 1999 when my dad decided to not be a teacher and go back to the environmental work as he was in the middle of an episode and he took off to Alaska for a new job. Okay, it's a hell of a, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm out. A few days later, this man showed up and ended up being my stepdad for the rest of my adolescent life. He will remain nameless as he does not need to be named. He was not a father figure at all. I remember in the first few years, he tried to be a cool guy, stepdad, and ultimately failed at it as he tried to get me to play baseball with him, and that was not me. He tried a few other things, but he is a book smart guy, not a street smart guy, and was not much of a man or a gentleman. He was basically a provider for the house at most. So that's a very one-sided perspective because your mom stayed with him. So she obviously got something out of him that provided for her that you may not have benefited from. You guys got to keep in mind that the relationships that your parents have when you're kids have to fill their cup. They're not just your parents. They're also people, and they also have needs and desires and wants, and they don't want to be alone when the kids move out. So there's an editor's note here that said his parents had split custody 50-50. He doesn't mention it until later. The following doesn't make much sense without that knowledge. Okay. When I turned 12 is when my life really took a turn and abuse got really bad. Not so much physical as it was more mental. I remember my dad saying he was going to unalive my mom, and that was said to me and my little sister on a pretty regular basis. Also, my dad had remarried at this point to an amazing woman who is still my stepmom, and to this day has helped change my dad so much. Good woman will do that. A good woman will absolutely do that. I also remember him locking my little sister in the closet one weekend when we were over at his house because of something she had done. If I remember correctly, it was that she told my mom something that she was not supposed to, and he completely lost his shit and gave her crackers and water to eat and then took me to BMX practice. And I was 11 or so at the time. My little sister got the phone call, and my mom and my stepmom called my aunt. Now, my dad denies this still to this day, and I remember it as it was yesterday. That image is burned into my head and always will be because of how mad my dad got over the situation and still has an impact on me today. When all of this happened, my sister went to my aunt's, and I remember getting home from BMX that night and my dad going straight into my little sister's room, and she was not there. He lost his mind again and went to my aunt's house. He had a broken wrist and elbow from a bike accident, so I believe that played a huge part in this as well. My aunt called the cops and said that he threw her across the house, which was a lie, because my uncle at the time was my uncle at the time was there. Boy, I can read. And that would not have happened as my dad was broken and my uncle was 6'4" and weighed 320 pounds. It was more muscle than fat. Ultimately, my dad got my sister taken away for a few years, and I did not go back to my dad's for a few months. My dad went back to court and got custody of my sister again, and then back to my dad's every other week. This cycle continued until I was 17 and decided, hell with it, I'm not playing by the rules, I just made my own schedule. When I was 11, 2002, my dad got lung cancer. He had surgery the summer of 2003, and it changed my life. Seeing him in the hospital bed, hooked up to all the machines, the memory is so vivid to me. I remember he was dreaming about riding and painting horses. He was in a drug-induced coma for 3 weeks. For recovery, I remember my grandparents being here and them helping as much as they could and doing the best that they could. The memory is so vivid to me because I remember he was dreaming about riding and painting horses. I wonder how that looked. My mom, man, I don't know how much of this I want to get into. My mom had an incident where she ended up in the hospital getting her stomach pumped from overdosing on amitriptyline. And while she was in there, they were pumping her stomach. She was in and out of consciousness, and I kept remember her reaching in her sleep, like she was reaching her hand up, and she was mumbling, and like she was not coherent. I really don't know how much of this I want to get into. I think this might have to be a conversation for Patreon, because it gets into a lot of trauma from my past that I don't think I want to get into. I'm going to leave that in, but that situation just triggered a whole lot of shit in me. And I know that feeling, and I remember seeing that. It's very vivid. That entire day for me, from the time I left till the time I found my mom overdosed till the time that they pumped her stomach, I remember every detail. Every single fucking detail of the day is embedded in my memory, and I think about it a lot. Fuck. Shortly after this is when the drinking, smoking, and Jesus lettuce consumption started. Not devil's lettuce, Jesus lettuce. Okay. I started selling so I could get high and escape at the age of 12 because my adolescent brain could not understand what was going on and what happened. No one was willing to explain anything to me as I was a kid. So I looked for and found an outlet that would let me escape, which later turned worse into my teens. when your kids go through something traumatic, don't just believe they're okay. Get a counselor, get a therapist. I know that therapists aren't cheap. I know that there are a lot of things that are available, resources that can help children. For those of you who are fans of the To Be Better podcast, we have a coupon code with BetterHelp. It's tobetterhelp.com/to be better. It'll save you 10%. We make absolutely nothing off of me giving you that code. It is just there for those of you who need to get help to get help. Don't just think that your kids are okay because they are putting up a facade. Kids will, especially teenagers, will put on a front like everything is fine because they don't know how to talk about it. They're not. We're not okay. I had made older friends, and they had felonies and had served time in jail. They were not good people. At this point, 15 years old, my mom had found out that I had smoked and started buying me cigarettes, as she felt it was better than me bumming them and the cigarettes being laced with something. Let's talk about that for a minute. My mom, Peach's mom, even from what I had been told, had the mentality of, I would rather you do it at the house where I can supervise you than doing it anywhere else. So in the event that I wanted to drink at 13, 14 years old, my mom would buy alcohol. And I would get drunk at home. My friends would all come over and we would hang out in my backyard and be somewhat supervised by an alcoholic who was feeding adolescents alcohol. I understand the wanting to be able to supervise and letting your kids experiment, but looking back on it, I really wish that I would not have had access to things the way that I had access to them. You can go back and watch the video that I posted on the To Be Better podcast about having conversations with 18-year-old me, because I was very suicidal in my teens. I was very suicidal up until about 4 years ago. And I believe a lot of that has to do with my abuse, not like my actual drug and alcohol abuse, not my trauma, although my trauma had a huge fucking hand in it. Moving on, I was a very angry teenager that turned to drugs and alcohol to escape reality. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to that. I had a very long time in my life where I was abusing things, but I never got addicted the way that a lot of other people got addicted. When I started getting to the point where I was craving something and I was unable to curb that craving and I really felt like I needed it, I would force myself to go without it for a little while to get rid of that addictive feeling, and then I would go back to it. I do believe it's still an addiction. And I did get addicted to drinking. I had a huge alcohol problem for a long time and taking opiates. Pills were a big thing. Probably about 6 years of my life. I don't know. I look back on it, and my life in that aspect could have been much, much worse than it was. But the people that I was around were addicted like that. Those were the people who were overdosing all the time. And I've lost a lot of fucking people to drugs and alcohol. So I guess that just compounds to everything that I had just said. Anyways, and if I was unable to get them, I turned angry and violent. When I would not get my way, I would blast metal or whatever I could to let whatever I could, and everyone would leave the house. I would be left to my anger. I would be left to my anger. He wrote angry. I would be left to my anger. And no one ever asked me what was wrong. They just let me be angry. I joined football freshman year of the high school that I was at, and was used to move people out of the way. I was fast backwards, so I didn't play a lot, but when I did, I ran guys over. Football and high school wrestling and jiu-jitsu is a great way for young men to get that anger out. Powerlifting is a better one, because the only thing that you can hurt in that aspect is yourself and not other people. But so at this point, I'm in high school. My stepdad has completely secluded to their bedroom, and only comes out to eat dinner. At this point, he just provides a paycheck, and him and my mom have hit the roommate stage. Okay, so that makes a lot more sense to the thing said earlier. And this never ends. Now I'm 16, almost 17 in high school, and I just wrecked my car and needed a mode of transportation. I talked my mom into buying me a brand new ZX6R 2009. I'm now a reckless teenager on a crotch rocket. As a writer, you know how stupid that was, but mom was trying to buy my love and make up for all the wrongdoings. That is fucking stupid. A 17-year-old kid does not need a crotch rocket. Oh man. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to do really stupid things on those bikes when you lose the fear of it and you're angry and hurting. I did stuff on that motorcycle that should have ended me, but I am still here today, and I swear that there is a higher power of some sort that has saved my life. It was not a good time. I dropped out of my last semester of my senior year in high school. Now, with my mom being a principal, she wasn't going to accept that, so I went to an alternative school and got my good enough diploma. Oh, no, got my actual diploma. Okay. Summer of 2011, at this point, I had joined a motorcycle social club, one-piece patch club, not a three-piece patch club. I thought I had a place. I belonged until shit hit the fan after a club party. Editor's note, this is edited down, probably because there's a lot of things that I would not be okay reading, so I'm just going to read the editor's note. He got very drunk at a club party. He came home and tried to turn his air conditioning down. When his stepdad locked the thermostat, he threw it across the room and started raging. He was screaming and cursing and throwing things. The emailer started damaging the cars and threatening to disassemble them. He returned to the house and got into a physical altercation with his stepdad, with his mom trying to get between them. His younger sister ended up calling the police. The police came and he cooperated with them while still yelling death threats at his stepdad. I'm a little confused as to where the anger at his stepdad actually came from, unless it's just drunken teenage rage. To me, it sounds like an amalgamation of things. And angry teenager shit. This is what happens when kids have unresolved trauma. My borderline showed its worst from about 16 to 32. But in my teenage to early 20s, it was very unchecked. I would throw things and break stuff. And, yeah. So I ended up in jail as a result. I spent a weekend in jail as this happened. On a Friday night, after my mom bailed me out of jail, I went to my aunt's and spent some time there and continued to be a total, complete piece of garbage. After I spent some time at my aunt's house, I ultimately apologized to him, put my family back together. I never got an apology from him, and I don't care, and now I don't think he owes me one. Well, it's good. On season 2 of episode 4 of The Chosen, Matthew is sitting down talking to Jesus about Peter, and he's talking to him about he doesn't think that Jesus should have chosen Simon/Peter to be the rock of the church, and Peter didn't know how to take that new title that he had given, and he let it go to his head. And he said that Peter didn't have the ability to forgive Matthew. He said that Matthew was the lowest of low of scums because of his betrayal to the Jewish people, and that he would never forgive Matthew for what he did. And Jesus looked at Matthew and said, forgiveness is a gift that is given to us by those that we have done wrong. Forgiveness is not, an apology is not about forgiveness. It is about repentance. When I saw that in the theater, I was like, I can't wait for that to come back out so that I can watch that again, because we watched The Chosen in the theater, and I wanted to hear that sentence. And I've probably watched it 50 or 60 times since then, because I want that to be ingrained in my memory. I am a very big show me action person. I don't want you to apologize if there is not true remorse there. I want to see changed behavior, and I want to see actions. And if you're not sorry for what you did, an apology doesn't mean anything. You telling me that you're sorry that I took it that way, or you're sorry that I'm going through it, I don't need pity. I don't, that's not who I am as a man. I want to see changed action. And in the event that I am sorry for something and I am repenting for it, and you choose to give me forgiveness, that's dope. But my repentance is enough for me. And for me to forgive other people is a gift to me, because I'm not walking around holding on to that ugliness anymore. So whether this man ever apologizes to you or not, and you don't think he owes you one, forgive for this, because you're carrying this around and all it's doing is poisoning the well. I went back to my mom's, where life then continued for a few years. I had a good job at being a jet fuel mechanic and was dating my now ex-wife. Bro, there's a whole lot of gap here to go from a high school student to a jet fuel mechanic. That's not just like a overnight thing. October 12th of 2012, bro's got dates. The day I found out my ex-wife was pregnant, I was 20 years old, and I was scared shitless. I had to become a man and become one fast. Having never really had a father figure growing up, I had no idea what to do, so I was just going to do my best. The day my daughter was born changed my life forever. I cried like the biggest baby in the world and was so happy. That happened to me when my daughter was born. I remember threatening the doctor before anything happened. I was so worried that my daughter's mother was going to die in labor and birth. And when I got to hold my daughter, I was a fucking sobbing mess. It was so like unreal to be holding this little life that I was now going to be responsible for in my hands. I was not a perfect dad in the beginning, and it was hard. Me and my now ex-wife were living with her parents, and we did that for a few months, then got our own place and got married. I was on cloud 9, and then the other shoe dropped. We went on our honeymoon. I had a horrible time. All she wanted to do was sleep, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to experience anything or even go have a drink. It was a few days of no kid now. No kid. Now, mind, we had sex one time on our honeymoon, and after that, it basically stopped. This is postpartum depression. This is the life change that happens. This is a whole lot of what we talk about on the To Be Better podcast. Go back and watch the postpartum depression episode. It'll elaborate a lot of things, and it may change your perspective on things on this. And it may allow you to get some forgiveness here as well. It was now I got him and don't have to do that anymore. So you viewed it as she locked you down and doesn't have to have sex. That's your perspective on this. I was not a perfect husband. I was not an asshole. I'm sorry, I was an asshole. I was lazy and didn't pull my weight in the relationship, and I see that now. We were married for 4 years, but in total together for 8. So there's a lot that can be talked about there. So you are acknowledging the fact that you were not a good husband and you were an asshole and you were lazy, didn't pull your weight. So is it that your ex-wife decided that she had you and didn't have to put out anymore? Or was it that you were not an ideal spouse and she was going through postpartum depression and your relationship was in shambles and you guys were not okay? This is why we push the check-in so hard, guys. You got to be able to have communication with your person. We fell into the roommate fast. She was not the perfect wife either. She verbally, mentally, and physically abused me, but I did stay for the kid until I could not take it anymore. The fights were unbearable and daily. She needed to have full control over everything. I was just to be the provider like her robot. The marriage was sexless. We lost it and all, and ultimately never got it back, obviously, as now as we are divorced and going back to court. Guys, we're definitely a fucking mess. We divorced in the summer of 2019 after my marriage ended. I turned to alcohol to numb myself again, and that is what my brain knew how to heal. I quit my job being a service tech for a gate company and sold cars and was horrible at it, but it got me out of paying child support. Ugh. And I barely made any money. Then COVID hit. Everything just got worse. I lost my place because I barely made any money, moved to the other side of the city and became a part-time dad until I got a new job and was able to provide a full life for my daughter again. So you were paying child support while you were raising your kid? I don't understand. I don't know. Anyways, I'm trying to get full custody of my daughter. Her mom has remarried and has 2 young kids with her now husband, and he also has a kid from a previous relationship. We have never seen eye to eye, and I have tried and will try again because I know it is what is best for our daughter. Then the schedule went to week on, week off, not court ordered, just an agreement between us. We have just adjusted the schedule as it has seemed to fit. To make a long story short, my daughter doesn't get to be a kid and is treated as an inconvenience. An example I will give is I took her to the dentist because my ex-wife and I have agreed that only we attend appointments. Cut that. So I picked my daughter up and took her to the dentist. She is wearing a size 14 shorts in kids and she's a size 4 in juniors. So she was sent to the dentist in not proper fitting clothes. I had to ask her why, and she told me because her mom doesn't buy her clothes. I have worked a few different construction jobs and ultimately became... Okay, wait, I'm not going to just skip over that. Why aren't you buying her clothes? If you saw this, why didn't you stop at Walmart on the way to the dentist or on the way home and pick up some clothing? Kids' clothes are not expensive. This is also going to do a number on your daughter's mental health. Something to be aware of. I've worked a few different construction jobs and ultimately became a super in the last few years, but it was overnight, so I left it and got an amazing job now at a damn good company that appreciates me and pays me what I am worth for the most part. That's also a perspective. My life has been hell, and after a few years, I started getting help, but ultimately it was no help as none of the counselors really helped me unpack properly and give me the right tools. They all wanted to focus on the present and not the past. And I understand that. There's a lot of Adlerian psychology talks about the way that we assign meaning to things. And being able to get it out, simply writing this email to me, probably worked through a whole lot of shit for you because it made you think about things. And it's, you said the stepdad no longer owes you an apology. There's a lot of things that you have to assign meaning to, accept that it happened, and then move past it. This is the phrase, it is what it is. Not it is what it is because fuck it, it is what it is. It is what it is because I've accepted that that happened. Life has moved on, and so have I. There's a power in acceptance. There's a power in making a choice to go, okay, I'm no longer a child who was angry. I am no longer a man who was with a controlling, I'm no longer a man who was with a controlling, abusive woman. I am no longer the man who can't buy my daughter clothing when she's a size 14, size 4 junior and wearing a size 14 toddler clothing. You need to worry about the now as well, because focusing on the now is the only thing that you can change. You can't change your past. You can accept that your past happened, and you can work on what you need to work on to go forward so that you can be the man that your kid needs you to be. Or even a woman if you end up finding a new woman. The now matters. Therapists and counselors are there to give you the tools that you need to fix yourself. And if you don't have a good counselor or a good therapist, you should find another one until you find one that mesh. And if you tell them what's going on and what you think you need, it's a good start. If you go in there and you just let them talk to you and try to get you to talk to them and open up to them, it's going to take time. Therapy is not a short thing. I've had therapists that I went to the same one for more than a year, and weekly sessions, and there's counselors, and there's just a lot. There's a lot to that. So you guys, for you gentlemen who are going to therapy, don't be so quick to just bail on it. If you don't mesh with your therapist, find another therapist. But when you find somebody that you click with, and you like their personality, tell them what you need, and then work on that. Now, since being divorced and reflecting on the past and how much of a not nice human being I was, I know now how to fix myself and become better, or at least start fixing myself. And thank you for that. Okay, you're welcome. You and Peaches are fucking awesome human beings, and I love you guys, so thank you. You're welcome. I have had relationships that have failed because I fell into my old ways. I have not been perfect. You never will be. I have been far from it, and I have not realized that until my last relationship. It was abusive and horrible. Threats of hitting our own delete button between us, verbal abuse from my ex, and how she would get triggered by words, just like my marriage. And she kicked me out, and I moved in with my dad recently, and have been making strides to be better and heal myself completely and remove all of my emotional baggage. So you found another toxic person, and you guys just poured toxicity into each other. This is why you do the work between relationships. I'm going to start going to the gym and see a counselor or something because I need it. I take an antidepressant every day to battle my thoughts, and it helps, but I want to get off of it. Good. I understand that antidepressants have a role in people's lives, and I'm not a doctor, but I, from lived experience, have hit my lowest of lows while on that shit. And I am completely drug-free. I don't smoke. I have 3 drinks a week when I allow myself to have them, which is very rare that I actually drink them. I believe that antidepressants, antipsychotics are a tool to start working through your trauma. And once you have done so, you should be able to get off of those things. I also believe that being on them long-term can do more harm than good. And there are studies that say as much, but doctors don't give a fuck about that because they get paid to give you drugs. I started listening to you and Peaches right at the end of my last relationship, and I will say again, thank you, and thank you so much. All I can say ultimately is thank you. Life is fucking rough and hard, and it has beat me up and kicked me when I have been down at rock bottom, but I keep getting up and moving. I don't drink like I used to. I just smoke for medical purposes, which is pain, sleep, and anxiety. I am doing the single dad thing and living my best fucking life, and the only people I can thank right now is you and Peaches for showing me that the world is ugly, But if you change and fix yourself, you can make it your bitch, and I am doing that. Good for you. So I'm going to finish my healing journey, and I'm going to do it thanks to you, and I'm going to become the best man I can be. I'm going to be my own person and build my empire and take this world by storm. Thank you for showing me that what a true gentleman is and how I should be and what I should do. So now that I know how to finish raising my daughter right, and she will know what to look for in a man. Didn't see this going anywhere near the way that this was going. This is just kind of a thank you letter and a little bit of a backstory. There's your success is that you're still here. I love that you're doing the work now. That's awesome. I'm glad that you found something in our podcast to make it so that you don't want to control alt delete yourself. But ultimately, I feel like you got a lot of work to do, brother. And I'm glad that you're a part of the Patreon and the Discord community. And I hope that you find the things that you need in being in there and that you continue to grow. We are 30 minutes. I want to do another one. That one was fairly short and there wasn't a whole lot I could get into. So give me 1 second to pull up another email. Voice of the Broken. Let me move that. Oh, wow. There's a lot of them in here. What is this one? This one's 11 pages. All right. This one's called The Struggle Life. All right. First, I want to say thank you to both you and Chris. Thank you both, Chris and Peaches, for what you do on the To Be Better. And then to say again, Chris, thank you for doing this and showing men what can still be accomplished despite a rough life. Your life is what you make it. All of this victim mindset, pity me, the government, the fucking nobody's going to help me out. My parents didn't hug me enough. I had a rough childhood. So did a lot of people. And they made a choice to pull themselves out of that and do something with their life. It's a choice. So I'm glad that you guys are hearing the podcast and you're realizing that you have the opportunity to do what you want to do in life instead of continuing to live as a victim. Okay, so moving on. I was born in 1990 to a 20-year-old father and a 17-year-old mother. My dad was a Navy Seabee and part of the first Gulf War. My earliest memories, unfortunately, are of my parents yelling and fighting. Now, I couldn't tell you what about or how I felt in the moment because these memories are very, very faint, but they're there. I understand that. 3 years old, my parents finally split. My sister, 6 months old, and I went to live with my paternal grandparents. This was as well as could be expected as far as my grandparents being essentially my parents. Keep in mind, grandparents were only in their 40s at this point, and they were still very capable of raising children as far as age and health goes. I think that I'm a better parent towards Peach's kids than I was to my own. And I'm 43. I say that because I have a lot more patience. I am better off financially. I have already built my empire. I don't have to work as much if I don't want to. I am able to take vacations when we want. I can be there with the kids when I want to be there. It gives me a lot more freedom because of my finances and my patience. So I'm willing to bet you got a better life with your grandparents in their 40s than you would have gotten with either of your parents. This time with them did have its struggles as I grew older, though these problems were still stemming from my parents. My mother was in and out so often it would make your head spin. I think when parents let go, they need to let go. I do recall, though, receiving the phone calls from her saying she'd be out to visit at this time and me sitting in the window watching and waiting for her to inevitably not show up. I went through that with my biological dad. This crushed our relationship over the years, and as this continued from the time I moved into my grandparents' house all the way to high school, I want to touch on my dad doing that shit. When you are a young man and your parents let you down like that, it shows you that you can't rely on anyone, right? And especially as a young man, constantly being crushed over and over again, believing that you are finally going to have a relationship with the people that you love, right? Or that should love you, because that's what we're told. That family is above everything, and your family matters, and your parents are supposed to love you unconditionally, and blah, 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 blah. And that's just not the case. You can share DNA with somebody and utterly hate their fucking guts. There are a lot of people in my family that I don't speak to at all because we just don't vibe. And I'm okay with that. I don't have to like you because we share DNA. I just don't. It took a long time to accept that. There's a lot of hate in me because of it. And I realize that my family members probably viewed me the same way, and that's okay. I don't give a shit. I got older. I did begin to just brush off anytime she said she'd visit, and I told her I'd believe it when I see it. My father, on the other hand, was just not there until I was roughly second grade. He was an alcoholic and was spending more time in bars than anything. I didn't know that at the time, so it didn't directly affect me. When he did come back around, however, he had met and was dating my now stepmom. This caused other issues because with her came 6 kids. Holy shit. She treated her vagina like a clown car. 6 kids. Whew. No way. No fucking way. Could you imagine? I'm an only child. I bet you guys didn't know that. I have family members that are very close to me that I consider brothers, and I have people in my life that I consider brothers, but I'm a one-off. Now as my young 8, I have my brother and sisters through my adopted family. So that's, the brothers and sister that I have, I didn't get until I was in my early teens. Actually, that's a lie. I think I was like 11. Anyways, now as I was young, 8 or 9 years old at the time, that had caused some serious internal abandonment issues, as it was viewed in my head as he couldn't keep me and my sister, but bring in all these other kids to try to raise them. How is that fair? Life's not fair. Life is not fair, dude. This drove a large wedge between us that would take years to remove. Well, I mean, if you've removed them, that's fucking great. From that point until 15, life was normal enough. School, sports, and spending time running around town with friends. At 15, my girlfriend at the time and I got into an argument that ended up ending the relationship. During this, she turned my sister for comfort. And to this day, I'll never understand why, but my own sister told her to tell her parents that I had raped her. Holy fuck. I don't even know what to fucking say to that. Doesn't take much, or doesn't happen often, but that just left me speechless. Despite the upbringing I had so far and the isolation and desertion I felt from my parents, this was the first incident I really had to face head on in my mind. My ex did end up telling her parents this lie, and I spent 2 weeks in the system. The whole time I believed that the truth would set me free. In the end, she recanted her story and I was free, at least from juvie and the law system. It wasn't until after the fact I found out my sister essentially organized the whole thing. And to add to it, my grandparents, who had raised me since I was 3, believed I had actually done this and weren't by my side in any of it. So after this became the town I lived in at the time, it was a little farm town, barely 5,000 people. I opted to move in with my dad and stepmom 3 towns over to start anew. It sounds like you did the right thing by moving. Sounds great reconnecting with my dad. Fresh start and all, can be on the up and up, or so I thought. I moved in just before school started, and right before turning 16 went smooth for a few months, and then everything turned on a dime. Now, by no means is this the worst treatment of a child out there, and I in no way had to deal with anything physical or anything like that. My stepmom, however, did begin showing a favoritism towards her children. Started off small. They would get special meals made for dinner if they didn't like what everybody else was having, while I would be made to eat regardless if I liked it or not. Of course there's favoritism there. You're not her kids. People will love children that aren't theirs, but they will never love them the way that they love their biologicals. And I don't give a fuck what anybody says. There's going to be people in the comments going, I love my biologicals. I love my bonus kids and I love them the same. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's not the same. Your kids are different than other people's kids. Now, can you love them close to the same? Sure. But ultimately, you know your kids are yours and theirs are theirs. And in the back of your mind, you know that in something happened, those kids would be taken from you and there's nothing you can do about it because they're not your kids. I also want to touch on the dinner thing. I am a old school motherfucker when it comes to food. If something is made and you don't like it, you don't eat. It's just the way it is. You can tell your parents like, hey, I don't like this. Cool. Go to bed. You can just go to bed hungry. You're not getting a snack. This is what's for dinner. Now that we know that you don't like this, we'll take that into consideration next time. But if somebody else in the house does like it, you're going to have to suck it the fuck up. If you are hungry, you will eat. Missing a single meal is not going to make you malnourished. It's not going to be the end of the world. I have spent a very long portion of my life eating once a day. I've fasted for 7-10 days at a time, and I'm perfectly fine from it. It didn't give me any food disorders or mental illness. Missing a meal is not going to kill you. If you look at human history, it was feast and famine. If you hunted and got a kill, you got to eat and gorge until the food was gone, and then you had to hunt and kill and do it again. And if you weren't able to forage, there were days that you would go without eating. That is normal life shit. So telling your kid to eat it or go to bed hungry, it's not the end of the fucking world. I was made to eat, regardless if I liked it or not. I will say that we have a you will try it 3-bite rule. You have to at least make a concerted effort to make sure you don't like it. But if you don't like it, you don't like it. As school and everything continued, I was determined that if I did the best I could possibly do in everything would work. And she would have to like me. So that was my goal. I was a 3-sport varsity athlete, high 3s GPA, and got a job where I worked 40 plus hours a week. Despite all of that, I still wasn't good enough for her. And it's funny looking at it now because what did it matter? She wasn't my mom, except for the fact that I was so desperate to have that motherly, unconditional love that I would do anything for it. This is what I talked about in that speaking to my 18-year-old self. If you guys haven't watched that, please go to the YouTube and watch that video. Peaches will be putting one together, and then we're going to watch one where we do a third one, possibly where we discuss each other's videos. The concept of getting your self-worth solely from the validation of other people makes you a slave. If you would have worded that, I didn't want this life, I knew I needed to be good for me, so I did everything I could to be a good person. I did 3 sports, high 3s GPA, got a job, worked 40 hours a week. I was thriving. I was proud of me. That changes the entire narrative of this conversation because you're not using the validation of others or the opinions of others to measure your level of worth or success. This is something that we're going to be teaching the kids really fucking hard. I understand that wanting the motherly unconditional love. I don't believe that anybody has unconditional love. I believe that love is truly conditional. I believe that you will only tolerate so much of shit before you finally start to dislike somebody. I was routinely told that if I worked harder, I could have a 4.0 GPA, would get grounded for months for something as simple as texting an ex she didn't like. All while my other step siblings there were 5 boys and 2 girls, could run around doing anything and everything, including drugs, staying out all night, and running away to live with boyfriends and girlfriends, only to move back in a few months later. You know what this sounds like to me? It sounds like to me you were getting tough love because they believed that you could actually do something with your life and they knew the other kids were fuck-ups. If I had one kid out of 7 that I believed was really going to do something with their lives and the other 6 were just complete pieces of shit, I would invest everything I could into that one kid. I may not be able to save the other 6 and all 7 may not be great people, but if I've got one, damn it, I'm going to give them every opportunity to fucking have what they need to thrive. And I'm not saying that your stepmom did this. This could be a fuck you from her, but like, I don't know. Eventually graduation came, and while my hard work didn't equate to anything with my stepmom, it did earn me a full academic scholarship for college. It did. Yeah, bro, it may not have done shit for your stepmom, but this is exactly what I was just talking about. Backing up just before graduation, though, in December of 2008, I met a girl. She had a son already, and I fell for him and her instantly. More him in hindsight. That reads really strange. We became a small little family, and in June of 2009 got married. This was stupid quick for a couple reasons. First, I needed to feel loved because you were relying on the validation of other people to assess your self-worth. I had been abandoned by my parents. Then my grandparents who raised me turned their backs to me after the whole incident at 15. And now I wasn't even getting affection in my own house from mom or stepdad. The other reason is despite them turning their backs on me, my grandfather who raised me was terminal with cancer and wanted him to see me get married. He ended up losing his battle to cancer in December of 2009. This screams unresolved trauma. This screams no self-worth, no. There are 2 ways that this pans out. And I believe, in most cases, it goes to one extreme or the other. You either end up like this, where you need the validation of other people to succeed, or you end up like me, where you go, fuck you, fuck all of you. I don't need any of you. I don't need your help. I don't need your handout. I don't need you to call me. This life is my own, and I'm going to do everything I can to have the life that I feel I deserve because everyone has abandoned me. That abandonment issue gave me abandonment issues a lot, and it affected a lot of relationships in my life, and it took me a very long time to get over all of that, but it didn't slow me down in terms of building the things that I wanted to have. And this is what I had talked about in a previous episode about hitting rock bottom. When you hit rock bottom and you really truly learn what you're capable of, that fuck you, I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need nobody. Born by myself, die by myself. Like it changes who you are. It really changes who you are. And that, I'm not bragging about that for me, because a lot of that mentality destroyed a lot of relationships. I had no problems telling somebody that I didn't fucking need them in my life. And anytime something went wrong, I would tell them, look, you don't want to be here, beat feet. I don't fucking need you. And you'd be surprised how fast you saying shit like that to people will get them to become very cold towards you. And it absolutely plants the seeds of chaos and destruction. And it's a very ugly thing. So, and I'm sorry that you lost your grandfather. My now wife and I's relationship was rocky at best from the start. Both of us were young and came from broken homes. We had zero idea of how to communicate, but I was determined to make it work. I had a family. I always wanted it. I understand that too. So while attending college full-time, working and driving back and forth 4 hours one way to and from college every weekend, I could afford it. I accepted any sort of attention I could get from my wife. Most of it came in the form of belittling me for not doing enough, not being there, being with friends in the dorm, etc. I will make a note here that she has epilepsy, which makes it near impossible for her to hold a job as her seizures aren't under control. So all this led to her cheating on me one weekend. That's not, her epilepsy seizures didn't lead to her cheating on you, bro. That was a choice. You being at college and coming home on the weekends maybe made her feel alone. I'm glad that you realized that you had a part in your relationship falling apart, but the decision to cheat was hers. When we talk about on the To Be Better podcast, when you have a cheating spouse, you look inward and go, what did I do? And how could I avoid this situation in the future to prevent this? We are not ever saying that it's your fault that your person cheated. People fucking take it that way because they're not listening to what's being said. They get triggered, they get in their feelings, they get a little butthurt, and then they want to argue. This is exactly what we're talking about. Most of the time it came in the form of belittling me for not doing enough. So she felt like you weren't carrying your weight, not being there. You were not present, and you were with friends more in the dorms than you were at home. So you were only spending weekends there. And you were working, you were driving 4 hours one way. So like you were there, but not present. So she was living a life without you there. That's the problem. That's where you go, okay, I don't need to do that shit in the future, because if I find a woman who loves me and wants me around, I need to be present. I need to be there for her emotionally, spiritually, whatever, and not allow her to belittle me. But I need to make sure that I can do more than what I was doing. That doesn't negate the fact that she made the decision to cheat on you. That shit had nothing to do with you. Those were her decisions. Your actions may have made it easier for her to make those decisions, and that's how you work on yourself. Hope that makes sense. Self-reflection, doing audits of yourself is a big fucking deal. If you look at your life and go, this sucks. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to deal with this. I hate my job. I hate my friends. I hate my family. I hate everything. Pity me. And you can't do an audit to figure out what you can do differently to make your life better. You're the problem. That's where the accountability comes in. Do self-audits. Figure out what you need to do to take control of your life and fucking take control of your life. So all this led to her cheating on me one weekend. I didn't make it home. 6 months into our marriage, and this is where we were. She came forth the next day and informed me of this, but it put me in a terribly dark spot. Here I was working and doing school and everything I could to make it work for our family, and yet again, I wasn't good enough. You were neglecting a lot of things in your life, bro. You were doing one facet of being the husband, not all of the facets of being a husband. It's not a matter of you not being good enough. You weren't present. There's a lot of things in that you could have taken from that, and it shouldn't have been that I wasn't good enough. It was that I was young. There was no one in my life that could teach me the way a man is supposed to take care of his family. Maybe you should have moved her closer to you, or I don't know. There's a lot there, but it's not that you weren't good enough. It's that you were uninformed. You were ignorant to the ways of life at that point. The following weekend, I went back up home and decided that I went back home is how it should have read. And decided at that moment I wasn't good enough, so what did it matter anymore? I loaded my hunting rifle, the one I used hunting season after hunting season, old reliable, always got the job done. Sat myself down in the woods just a few yards outside of eyesight of my dad's house. With shaking hands, sweat pouring, I inserted the barrel into my mouth and click. The most deafening sound I ever heard. I bet you flinched. I did. I flinched. All I heard was click. The rifle that never failed before had failed to fire this time. I instantly broke down completely. Tears, hyperventilating the whole time. 9 yards of ugly crying. I was out there what seemed like a lifetime, but in reality it was probably a few hours. Later, upon inspection, the firing pin had struck the primer of the round, and the round didn't go off. This I took as my sign that despite what I thought, my story wasn't over yet. I'd like to say that I went and found professional help, but that wasn't the environment I was raised in. Instead, I filed for divorce for my wife 18 months into our marriage, knowing that not only would I lose a wife, but in all likelihood, a son, as he wasn't mine. Spoke about this on the last one. And I had no rights to him. She did for a while keep him from me, but as of today, I'm still dad to him despite there being no legal or blood connection there. Fucking dope. After my divorce, I enlisted into the Army in 2011. Leading up to this, I met another woman. Again, this woman came with a son. We talked night and day about everything from past relationships to future plans and how everything looked to us. I left for training in March and she was stationed in Hawaii. While she stayed to finish school in Missouri. Damn, I don't know why that was so hard for me to read. We got married in December of 2011. Again, another quick timeline, but I was unable to be alone at this time and clung to any attention I could get. You were able to be alone. You chose not to. It's a choice. She would eventually move to Hawaii with me, and in June of 2013, we welcomed our first son together. At this point, I had the son from my first wife that I was still dad to, and then 2 sons with my current wife, 1 step, 1 biological. So you had 3 kids. How did you get custody of that other chick's kid? During the time leading up to this, however, I was a terrible husband and turned to porn and emotional cheating countless times, as well as alcohol. I was at the point of maxing out credit cards to go and drink. I am not sure what point the light switch turned on, but I did stop the drinking at least. Despite this, though, for whatever reason, my wife at the time stayed with me. In February of 2015, I adopted my stepson with my current wife, and in May 15, we welcomed our daughter, so now you got 4 kids. In 2015, December 2015, I went on a 9-month deployment to Afghanistan. Before I continue reading this, your lack of self-worth and your needing to be fulfilled by the validation of others is the reason that you go to emotional cheating. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a counselor, but I promise you that's exactly what it is. People who have borderline personality disorder are by nature promiscuous. Not all, but the high percentages are. And a lot of that comes down to abandonment. We latch on to people who give us attention to make us feel like we matter to them. It gives us an overpowering feeling of love. And that feeling of attention and I'm worth it and somebody finally fucking loves me and they're showing me attention and this is amazing fills that. I'm worth it. I'm good enough. Look at the attention I'm getting. And when that fades and that lustful bullshit stops, we find another person and do it again and do it again and do it again. When you find somebody that ticks the boxes and you can be honest with them and say, hey, my attention meter's not being filled right now. I started thinking about getting attention from another woman on the internet. And your partner goes, okay, I understand. I will try to work on giving you more attention, more positive affirmations, whatever it needs to fill your cup. Your need to step out for attention will change. That comes from a whole lot of internal self-audits a whole lot of acceptance that we are all flawed motherfuckers, and that the feeling of not being loved enough as a child can fuck us up for a long time. Having a partner who understands and the ability to communicate the two things is a game changer. I would also like to point out that if you find somebody that you can be brutally honest with, not from a place of vindictive, vile behavior, but you can go, I need to be an asshole right now and I don't know how to word what I'm going through, and then word vomit, and they go, okay, let me process it. And then you guys can problem solve. The need to suppress who you are, the need to suppress your internal failures or the internal dialogue, the needs to seek validation out elsewhere, all of that changes because you believe that you've got somebody now that you can truly lean on. And that starts with being completely honest from the get-go. If you guys want to go on a date when things are new and lustful and you just want to make them happy and they want to go do some shit you don't want to do, don't just go and try to play along. Be like, I really don't want to do that. I don't think that that's going to be fun for me. Let's find something that we can both enjoy. You're going to set a precedence so that they can expect that you're always going to tell them the truth and you can build on that foundation. Moving on, this deployment in the grand scheme of deployments wasn't terrible at all. I saw my fair share of IEDs and carnage from that, and to include civilian casualties, women and children. 9 months later, I'm back home. My wife did the best she could to hold everything down while I was gone, and honestly, considering 3 kids under the age of 6, I think she did a great job. Came back from deployment thinking it was minor and had simple adjustment to be back home. Thousands had done it before, so why couldn't I? Because you already had trauma that you hadn't worked through, and you brought all of this shit with you and then brought all of it back home on top of the shit you're bringing with you. Well, the initial adjustment was simple enough to be happy to be home with kids, wife again. Everything seemed smooth. Granted, at the time I was barely sleeping, and when I did get there, there were nightmares. When I was awake, it was everything in me to go out in public with my family and not completely lose my mind. There were occasions where we would have to cut outings short because I was unable to function anymore in public. This is CPTSD. During this time, I also started getting migraines on a weekly basis. Despite all of this, I managed to keep my life together enough to welcome another son into the world in July of 2017. For those counting, that is now 1 my son with my first wife, 3 sons, and a daughter with my wife. So that puts you at 4 kids, right? Plus the bonus kid. 1 with my first wife, 3 sons. Okay, 5 kids. I can count. Math is right there. What the fuck is wrong with me? At this point, everything began to fall apart for me. Between the limited sleeping and the migraines that continued to get worse, more frequent, lasting days and weeks, and even months at one point, I felt like I was losing my mind. I was a shell of a person. Nothing was of interest anymore, and it took everything in me to just wake up in the morning, let alone get out of bed. I went through the motions of the day to day, but I didn't want to be anywhere or with anyone. This came to a head when I learned that I would be getting medically discharged out of the Army. Now, the Army was going to be my career. My plan was full 20 years and a retirement, but now I was being kicked out because I wasn't medically fit for duty anymore. This was my lowest places I had been in for a very long time. There was that thought in the back of my mind, getting bigger and bigger, that all of the struggle and pain I was in could very easily end my life. This thought continued to grow as the process went to get out of the military until one evening this was the only thought in my head, and I received a phone call. One of my buddies from my time in Hawaii was calling to see how I was. No prompt by anyone, just reached out to me. Now, I didn't lay everything out for him, but I informed him it was a struggle to adjust to being back home and then also getting out of the Army. He's the reason I finally reached out to a professional for some help. It's important to be there for your people. The first professional I talked to was brand new, LT, fresh out of college, and her first assignment. As I'm opening up to someone for the first time in my life about everything I experienced on deployment, I see the color leave her face. At this point, I got up and left and informed her I didn't think this would be a good fit. So the one time I looked for professional help was a flop. So no more professional help for me, and I exited the military. Why do we do this, guys? I tried it once, it didn't work, so I quit. Tried it once, it didn't work, so I don't know how to swim. I don't know how to ride a bike. I don't know how to walk. I don't know how to run. I don't know how to fire a weapon. I don't know how to fuck properly. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to cook. I can't clean. I can't drive my car because I tried it once. It didn't work, so I quit. It never applies to any of those things, but it always applies to therapy. Went one time. It wasn't for me, so I'm not doing it again. On the outside, we moved back to Missouri where I worked a few different jobs that never seemed to be the right fit. During all of this, my mental state got to the point that I went to the VA for help and was put on a mood stabilizer. This helped in a sense. I was no longer experiencing the lows. However, there were side effects that accompanied these pills, to which finally the VA gave me another med, and so on and so on. Finally, one day I looked down and had 12 different meds I was taking, all to the point to not feel anything. I didn't feel the lows or highs anymore. I finally decided that this wasn't how I wanted to live. I needed to experience feelings. I flushed every pill I had and refused to refill them. Now, I don't recommend this, as there are many possible withdrawal symptoms that can come from this, but luckily for me, it worked out. Yeah, I don't recommend that either. Some of the things that I had quit cold turkey that doctors had prescribed me specifically tell you to really wean yourself off, or it can create psychosis and withdrawal symptoms. So, however, this time of lows and highs had taken its toll on my marriage. Everything was an argument from why was a light on all the way to there not being enough money. At this time, I had gone to a trade school and learned to weld. So this is what I was doing for work, which included overnights and 56-hour work weeks, 2 8s, 4 10s. I was doing all this trying to make everything work, and all the while the wife was a stay-at-home mom taking care of our kids. During this time, I took one thing that the therapist had said when I was seeing them at the VA, and I began writing everything down to work through my problems, get my thoughts out, etc. This was working wonders for my personal growth. It allowed me to work through things that I had been shutting down for a long time. Guys, journaling goes a long fucking way. And I know that it's easier to vague book post and like type than it is to actually physically handwrite in a journal, but handwriting in a journal forces you to slow down because we don't handwrite anymore. We do this. And as we do this, we can keep up with our thoughts. It's very fast. Whereas when you're handwriting, you can't do that. It's a lot harder to backspace or delete. It makes you really think about what you're going to put down, and it helps you process things. I believe everyone who has any type of anything going on in their head that they're struggling with, start journaling. And when you go, well, where do I start? You grab your pen, you grab a piece of paper and go, today I feel like this because, and then just let it out. You don't have to have structure. There doesn't have to be Dear Diary, today I cried, somebody didn't buy me flowers, pity me. You can be like, fuck this day, fuck me, fuck life, I hate everything, this is why I feel this way, and let it out. Writing that down will allow you to look at what's going on in your life and start to process what's happening. Don't allow it to put you in a victim mindset. When you're writing those things out, start looking for a solution to your problems. Despite this, me and my wife were not good. And one night while at work, she found one of my writings which laid out thoughts of if it was right to be in the marriage at all or still because of how unhappy I had been. This led me to receiving a text message at work of my stuff on the front porch with a message that said, please have all of this gone before the kids get up and see it. Wow, dude, your wife saw that note instead of asking you what was actually going on and if you were okay, she just fucking dumped on you like, come get your shit off the porch before the kids wake up? This is August of 2021 and began the 2-year battle to settle the divorce. During this, I did go back and forth on whether I should stay and fake it till the kids were out of the house. If it was better to be happy and have them see that, or if it was better to be happy and have them see that. In the end, we did get a divorce. That was a fight till the end. I left the house and car, and all I wanted was a fair amount of time with my kids. I ended up with every other weekend and alternating holidays. That blows. While going through the divorce, I met someone new and began talking to them. It was never supposed to be anything serious, as I was not planning to ever marry again and needed to work on myself. However, that being said, this woman allowed me to grow and change in ways I hadn't been shown before. She was understanding and listening and was able to openly communicate without a fight like I was used to. And in June of 2023, we welcomed a baby girl. And in October of 2023, we were married. So you were 2 years. Since then, we have opened our own business in March of 2024 and a welding company. She runs the office side of things, and I weld and fabricate. Selfless plug, TMT Welding and Fabrication on Facebook. We are working on this company becoming our forever business and something we can leave to our children. I want to look up this welding and fabrication because I want some custom furniture. So I may be reaching out to you. In the end, I'm on the up and up. I am by no means healed, but definitely better. There are still dark days, but they are far less prevalent than the brighter days. I have come through the struggle of life so far, and I'm continuing to move forward. I have survived all of my worst days so far and plan to continue to do so. I really hope that you are not using the validation of others to fill your cup. I hope that you are able to express to this new woman, like, I'm going through a rough time today because I saw this on TV and it made me feel this emotion. I thought about this time and it's made me sad. I am processing something that happened when I was 16 years old because I heard a song lyric and it made me feel like I was 16 years old again. Have those conversations. If you marry somebody, guys, if you decide that you want somebody to be your together person forever, your best friend, your teammate, your spouse, your business partner, this is going to be who you spend your life with. You need to be able to talk to them. If you cannot talk to them, this is not your person. Just because things are good and lustful and you're having a good time does not mean that this is your person. You guys need to really make sure that everything meshes before you decide that you are going to dedicate your entire life to somebody. You got a woman now who can communicate with you and you guys are working together. You are doing a business together. You are in a position right now to do great things with your life. And I'm fucking proud of you, dude. Starting a business and going through everything that you've gone through to be where you are right now, it means that you've had to have done some of the work. The journaling helps. I'm fucking glad you're doing that. I hope that you've got a group of men that are able to talk to you when you're having a bad day. And I really hope that your woman is truly a pillar for you and that when you feel like you need to lean on somebody, that she can be there for you. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. I've read 2 emails. We're a little over an hour in. And I hope that you got something from this. I know that this was not much of a breakdown. I'm just kind of reading stories at this point. I think that I might move this over to Be Better. I'm not sure yet. Let me know in the comments if you think I should keep it separate. And if you found value here, at least subscribe to the channel because this is where I'm going to be doing standalone shit for me. It may not just be emails. There may be days where I have thoughts that I want to sit down and put on the internet that may not mesh or vibe with Be Better. And now I have a place to do it. So with that being said, guys, we'll see you on the next one.